Thanks for listening to the ArtTactic Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Green. The art world has historically lagged behind other industries when it comes to technological innovation. But over the last few years, I believe the art world has caught up in many ways. One of the first companies to bring technological change to the space is Artsy, which was founded in 2009. Over the years, we've had multiple CEOs of the company on the podcast, and it's impressive that it remains the top e-commerce platform for most galleries worldwide. So in this week's episode of the podcast, we speak with the newly appointed CEO of Artsy, Jeffrey Yin. We'll delve into his vision for the future of the company, how technology continues to shape the art market, and we'll gain insights into current market trends based on the data they gather from collectors and galleries. We hope you enjoy the episode. Thanks so much for listening. Jeffrey, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Adam. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And congratulations again on being the newly appointed CEO. So how long have you been at Artsy? And as you take over as CEO, what will be some of your primary objectives for the company?
So I actually joined Artsy in 2019. I had joined the company from my prior organization, The Knot, which is the wedding website, and was really attracted to a company that had a good brand in the art market, a lot of traffic, and was looking to reconfigure itself from a business that was feeding leads to galleries and transforming it into more of a marketplace. And so that was a real attraction to me. And as I think about sort of my primary objectives going forward, it's very aligned with what we've been doing over the last 5 years. At Artsy, our vision is a future where everyone is moved by art every day. And our mission is to expand the art market to support more artists and art in the world. And the first of our 5 core values is for the love of art. And so as I think about what we're trying to do, it's to continue to expand the reach of artists and galleries to collectors that they otherwise won't be able to connect with because they don't have that kind of reach that we have. And on the collector side, I think about making the art world more accessible for them. It's not the purview of just the art world insiders to be able to discover new, cool artists that really resonate with them. That should be accessible to everyone. And so as I think about everything that we're going to continue to do, it's in the spirit of the vision and the mission that we've been executing against for the last 5 years.
Yeah, and I remember when Artsy was established in, I think, 2009 or 2010. I had been in the art world myself for a few years. It was considered to be a technology company as much as an art company. And because of that, it was a really exciting and rare startup in the art world, an industry that historically at least has lagged behind from a technological perspective. Now, many years later, what are some of the major ways technology is being utilized at Artsy? And how do you envision technology playing a role in advancing the company over the next several years?
Yeah, that's a great question. We are a product-led company, and that is a sort of business operating philosophy that we have, where I have a product team where I give them problems and they give me solutions. And they do that by really understanding customer needs and pain points. They understand the competitive landscape. They hear from customers, I have this problem and I need a solution. But what they're really good at is not necessarily doing the solution that the customer is asking for. And that's because they have a familiarity with technology, and the technology can unlock a solution that the customer has never even dreamt of. And so from a fundamental operating standpoint, we're a product-led company that is bringing technology solutions to customer needs. And so over the time, we've invested heavily in product design and engineering, which has improved the experience for both the partners on our platform as well as the collectors. As we continue to think about what is that technology going to deliver, it's to strengthen, personalized recommendations. It's better curation. And so if I'm on the hunt for a particular type of artist, or I have a particular type of collection persona, we want the technology to be able to show you the most relevant art to your collecting needs, and then allow you to transact for that art very easily. And that's how technology fundamentally flows in our ecosystem.
So the art market has historically been an opaque marketplace where we've had to rely on auction results to provide us with a level of transparency to better gauge the state of the market. On the primary market and private sales in the secondary market, really there isn't a lot of data that's easily accessible. At Artsy, you gather a significant amount of data, perhaps more than anyone else in the industry when it comes to galleries and collectors. Can you share some data with us today that you've gathered just to give us more insight on the state of the current art market? There's a lot of talk on potential softening that we've heard maybe the last 9 months or a year or so.
Yeah, so you're absolutely correct. We use algorithms. We use a lot of data-driven insights. We have access to all of the secondary market data that other market participants have, but we have a database of our own activity on the marketplace. And so we probably have the largest database of primary market activity in one place. And it's not simply sales transactions, it's all of the types of activities that a user is performing on our site. So saving an artist, following an artist, what pages they're landing on, how many times they're engaging with a particular artist page. All of that information helps inform some of the decisions and user flows that people go through. But as I think about sort of the market today and some of the data, the art market seems to be a little bit more anemic than it has been in the past. And yet on Artsy, for example, our second and third best e-commerce months were May and June of 2024. And so there is some element where maybe there's a little bit of shifting that's going on from in-person and offline sales to online transaction activity, because we're seeing activity on Artsy that isn't anecdotally what we're hearing the rest of the art market is potentially seeing. But in terms of certainly some top-level data, we're seeing this year, when we're doing specific tentpole moments like our Foundations Fair, which is running on Artsy right now, participants in that historically have seen an over 40% increase in the number of inquiries that they receive. They see a 33% growth in sales through e-commerce. So those types of tentpole moments that we do on an online basis help drive flow to our partners. Today, I can share some top-line data, but we've got about 1.2 million works of art for sale on Artsy. More than 500,000 are available for direct checkout through e-commerce. As we compare the first 4 months of 2023 with 2024, we've seen a 50% increase in new partners joining Artsy. We have today over 4,000 galleries, auction houses, and art fairs and institutions in over 100 countries. And we've expanded our e-commerce capabilities to new countries and regions. When I started here, we were only in one country, and today we're in 37 countries, and we transact in 3 different currencies, euros, pounds, and dollars, which is a disproportionate amount of the art flow activity in the real world. And so there's a lot of differentiation, I would say, between what people are experiencing in the offline world and what we're seeing in the online world.
And to follow up on that, you and your colleagues at Artsy are, of course, engaged in dialogue with almost every reputable gallery in the art world as they have a presence on your platform. What have your recent conversations with them been like in regard to the state of the art market and how they're doing and how they're feeling about things?
The general feedback that I'm hearing is that collection activity is still happening. People continue to love and have a human passion for art, but the sales cycle is taking longer. And so getting people across the finish line is still happening. It's just not happening with the velocity that it was happening previously, prior to probably the first quarter of 2023. I think there's a perception that the US consumer is a little bit more resilient at the moment. And what we're seeing is more galleries and artists from outside of the United States trying to make a bigger push to reach a US audience at the moment. And that I think ebbs and flows. And so sometimes it's Western galleries trying to reach the Chinese collector. It's sometimes people trying to reach the European collector. Right now, the feedback I'm hearing is that those collector markets are moving, but not with the velocity that at least the perception of the US market is moving at. And so we are seeing more people trying to reach that New York collector in particular, who is still purchasing with a little bit more velocity. And I think the philosophy of collectors can differ across different regions. And so I think in the New York market and certainly in some European markets, there's still that sort of sense of patronage where somebody wants to discover an emerging artist or have a relationship with a gallery and step in and sort of shepherd that artist over the course of her career. It's not simply one of financial gain where they say, okay, I have to buy this work of art and I need to have some 10x on it in order for this to be worth my time. I think the US consumer doesn't collect solely in that mindset. And so there's a little bit more opportunity for somebody who has a really compelling narrative and is pouring their heart and soul into a work of art to find somebody in certain markets who says, you know what, that message really resonates with me and I want to collect your work.
Well, I certainly think if you want to collect in the long term, that's the right mentality and approach to have. You also have a lot of data on collectors, of course, who are utilizing the Artsy platform. What kind of trends have you been able to detect recently regarding potential changes in terms of tastes in the contemporary art world, the artists that collectors are looking at, or really how they're collecting?
Well, certainly when I'm looking at the top 500 artists on Artsy with the most inquiries over the last year and sort of a year-to-year comparison, pop artists and street artists are generally strong across the board. For both years, we're seeing a slight shift in interest away from 20th century and modern artists and towards more contemporary names. So we're seeing decreasing inquiries for iconic historical and modern artists such as Picasso or Dali or Basquiat. We're seeing stable or increasing interest in contemporary artists like David Yarrow, Inez Longevial, Daniel Arsham, Yayoi Kusama. And we're seeing rising visibility and interest in some emerging contemporary artists like Alfie Kane and Louis Fertino. Interest in women artists is stable. They account for about a quarter of our top 500 artists in both years. But when looking at women and non-binary artists, there's a much greater range at the top. So even within the top 10, we see familiar blue chip names like Yayoi Kusama, Helen Frankenthaler, and Tracy Emin. But then we have these young rising artists like Apollonia Sokol, Inez Longevial, Lee Hae-dee. That's been more pronounced this year versus last year, which seemed to favor more established and mid-career names.
And before we let you go, I wanted to ask you about the Foundations Art Fair that you're hosting on the Artsy platform. Can you tell us a little bit more about the concept behind that art fair and how long has Artsy been hosting art fairs on your platform?
So this is our fourth Foundation Fair. It is intended to really showcase smaller and emerging galleries and artists. The price points for the works are generally under $10,000. We have 70 galleries that are participating from 6 different continents. We really try to spread the love really to this longer tail in the gallery market, many of whom have really compelling works that are really well priced. They're very accessible for a new collector who's trying to discover a new artist. And it's a great way to showcase rising talent in a very curated and accessible fashion. So we're very excited to be putting on Foundations Fair again. We've had a great success with it. We do it twice a year. There was a winter foundation. Now this is the summer season. And as I mentioned earlier, we typically do see an increase in all sorts of commercial activity for both the galleries and the artists who participate in foundations. And I think you see this in, offline activity as well. Some collectors are not necessarily purchasing the work of art at a fair. They're not purchasing it the moment they walk into the gallery, but they're starting to build that relationship with the galleries or particularly with the artists. And that particular work that's showcased may not be the right work, but they follow the artist's on Artsy, they created an alert, and when the right work of art appears, then they go and they snatch it up. And so it's a little bit of audience building for the gallery. Sometimes people do actually just want to purchase something right away. That we do see that happen quite a bit. I actually inquired on a work of art yesterday with a gallery in the Foundations Fair, and sort of mid-conversation, somebody purchased it and snatched it away from me. And, as a collector, that drives me crazy because it's a unique object, and they're showing me other ones from the artist, and I'm like, no, but I wanted that one. So it's just a lesson to me sometimes as a collector that you don't know when a work of art is going to resonate with someone else, and sometimes it just gets snatched away from you, and that as a collector is really frustrating.
Yeah, the contemporary art world can move really fast, and there are those situations, as you're described, where you have to make a decision in a minute or so, otherwise the work is gone. As an art advisor, especially with new collectors, when there's an artist we're interested in pursuing, I definitely in advance try to familiarize my clients with their work, so when those kind of opportunities do arrive, we can confidently make a quick decision on acquiring a work or not.
Yep, absolutely.
Jeffrey, thanks so much again for coming onto the podcast and sharing a little bit of your vision for Artsy moving forward, as well as sharing some of the data you have on collectors and galleries so we can better understand the state of the art market. And if our listeners haven't visited Artsy already, I'd be shocked if they haven't, but if somehow they haven't, you should certainly visit Artsy's website, create an account, follow some artists, see what art they have available for sale. There are a lot of things you can do on the platform. We appreciate it. Thanks so much, Jeffrey.
Thanks, Adam.